to do.
That's right.
Well, no wonder there's such a lot of disappointments and a lot of stressed out people. They're not doing what you would say, let's quote what your phrase, they're not doing what they're wired for,
That's right,
according to their DNA.
Yeah.
So they're not being faithful to that which was in their hearts.
Right.
And so oftentimes, I believe we do need to affirm people more. We need to motivate people more. We need to let people know it is okay to follow your heart.
Right. What you're talking about is leadership.
That's right.
That's it. It's leadership. So what are some of the things in leadership? Because I know you have different programs I think you're doing, and you minister to leaders. You raise up leaders. Actually, maybe you can share a little bit about what you're doing in terms of on this scale, because I know that's your heart, both you and your wife.
It is. It is. And as you said, Colleen, I thank God for her because she's so passionate about people. And as you said, she shares with me, really as co-pastor with me, as a ministry gift to lead our church. And while I'm at it, I should say, you know, our congregation, Foundation for Life Family Church, they're such a blessing. And we're just so blessed. And of course, I can't forget my two girls, Karl and Elizabeth.
Yes.
But no, they're just so, it's such an exciting time to minister to the congregation that God's given to us. But getting back to your question about leadership, one of the things that's a passion in me is men. And what we have every monthly, first Saturday of every month, is what I call a Men of Vision meeting. And in fact, I was thinking about Proverbs 29, verse 18. It says, people die for a lack of vision. Now, when you trace that actual phrase through, it actually means they die for a lack of revelation of the word.
Wow.
So what God's put in my heart is to really minister to our men so they be doers of the word and thereby fulfill their destiny as well as lead their families the way God wants them to do. Then there's another part, a big part of it also is there are men called to business and women called to business. So we're going to initiate something in the fall to help to train people called for business. And so we're pretty excited about that.
You know, I want to talk just a little bit more about the pastor's seat of authority. I really believe God's given you some revelation of that shepherd call. Now, you know, you were traveling for many years on the road. You went, you know, Europe, you know, different nations in North America.
5 years as well.
5 years of traveling. And then God halts you really, arrests you, gets your attention, and says, I want you to now pastor. What was that transition like, and what have you learned about this?
And that's a great question. Thanks so much for asking that. When I traveled, what was in my heart a lot when I resigned the associate pastor position, what I felt God put in my heart was, are you willing to work with other pastors to help them fulfill their vision? Really, that was in simplicity. So in traveling, it was really to we did healing evangelistic meetings, leadership training, and basically teaching basic principles of the Christian faith and helping believers to be established. But central to that was that leadership thing. And you really had a heart for the pastor, for his vision, and also helping people to see how to work with their pastor. But throughout that time, what God used that time frame for me, I believe, He really developed and increased a love for people. You know, the word Jesus said this, that my people die for a lack of knowledge. And Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 9. He says they were like sheep without a shepherd. They fainted, they were weak, they were scattered. And He had great compassion. In fact, He was quoting Numbers, I believe, chapter 18, where Moses, he was about to pass on, and I use this a lot in teaching on this subject. And now you think a man, he's out of a great congregation, 2.3 million people, is about to pass on, and he could think, you know, well, I've had a great ministry, great life. But you know what he says to the Lord? He says, Lord, please please assign someone else in my place, or else your people will be like sheep without a shepherd. He understood that if the people of God don't have God-ordained leadership, they will fail. They will be scattered. And I believe God is raising up and He's emphasizing the local church in this day and age like never before, not for the sake of control and manipulation. And I know some of the fears of leadership. But the fact is this, and I'm more bolder about this, you cannot grow as a Christian if you are not submitted in a local church to a God-ordained pastor. Now, I know that, you know, that's almost like heresy in North America, but that is the truth. You will not grow. You can be doing all these things, you can be studying, but another truth is this. Everywhere in the Bible where it talks about growth, it's usually said in terms of community, in terms of believers relating one towards another. So it's not just knowledge, but it's submission. It's relating to God-ordained leadership. And that's one of the key principles of growth.
You know, you mentioned relating to a pastor or to a God-ordained pastor. You know, that comes back to that word alignment.
That's right.
That alignment is about aligning to the God-given places of authority surrounding your life. That's how alignment begins in your life. And you know, all authorities of God, the scripture says in Romans 13 it is, and it says, if you rebel and resist authority, then you rebel the ordinance that is set up and appointed of God. So that's something very interesting. Let me give you an example. For example, let's say someone's a prophet. And the Lord's speaking to this prophet, and he's a prophet of God, and he's ordained of God to be a prophet, and he gets in his car and he just begins to accelerate, and the speed limit is 60, and he's doing 100 kilometers an hour, 100 miles an hour. The police officer pulls him over, stops the car, and the officer says, "Sir, what were you doing? You're speeding here." And then let's say the prophet says, "Well, I'm a prophet. You know, I'm under the authority of God, and I can speed if I want to." And the officer is going to say, "Well, if you're a prophet, you should have known I was going to give you a ticket.
Yeah,
I was
that's
going to pull
right.
you over." And if you have any doubt about who's in charge in that situation, you can tell by the uniform of the police officer or the state trooper. If you're still in doubt, you can tell by the stripe on his pants. And if you're still in doubt, he's got a gun on his side. And that has should clear all doubt for you. But you see, even though you have authority as a prophet, that doesn't mean you cannot honor and the existing authority, that civil authority. So there's a mutual respect also, right, for authority of one another. So we have to, for example, I recognize and I understand the authority God has given you. And I want to honor that authority, and I want to receive you, because if I respect the authority God's given you, then I can unwrap the gift of God that's in you that is supposed to bless us. And that's what it's all about. You see, so God sends you people. Maybe he sends you a pastor, sends you to a church, and you have to understand the seed of man is always holy. A man is never perfect. No man is perfect. But the seed is perfect, and the seed is ordained of God, and the blessing is in the seed of man, because that represents the authority and where the river of blessing flows. But we have to also mutually respect other people's places of authority as well.
That's good.
And that's something I've watched you do, Karl. In the years I've known you, I've always seen a genuine reverence in your heart. This is not something you're saying just, you know, flippantly, or that you're preaching from his word. Something I've seen you live in your life that you appreciate and you submit to genuine authority.
And I think that's important, because where there is sometimes the resistance to authority, and why, let's say, North America, we've really gone into a big swing towards, really, it's rebellion. It's almost anarchy. But some of that is because of the way people in authority have used their authority. They've used it not to serve, but they've used it to control, to manipulate people. And so obviously people under oppression over a while will try to flee out from under that. And in many cases they should. But as you alluded to, there are different kinds of authority. Let's say as a pastor, and I use the example, if I came to your home, I would have to get permission to come into your home, to use different parts of your home.
That's right.
Well, it's the same thing. If anyone is a member of my congregation, then as a man, I need to respect him as a man and the authority of his home, regardless of my authority as a pastor. And in fact, authority is always voluntary as far as submission to authority. I need members of my church. I need their consent to teach them. When they come out on a Sunday, they're really saying by their attendance, I am submitting myself to you. It is not me demanding submission from them. And I think that's where some of the extreme has gone on, where some pastors, some leaders, they're almost like dictators in saying, well, you do this, and if you don't, there'll be a curse on you. Or if you don't do this, you know, so it's really control. It's almost like the witch doctor. So it's a leadership from a fear factor instead of a love and servant motivation.
Submission,
Yeah, you're really hitting some deep stuff here, Karl. So tell me, what if someone is in a situation watching, and they're in a controlled environment like that? You know, you're going to go there. I'm going to ask you some questions there. What does someone do when they're in a difficult situation like that?
Okay, you know, and that's a good question. The way I would answer that is this: people need to seek the Lord.